issues that we think of as the practical issues. And here I'd have to go with the ones I always mention, which are race and poverty. The racial divide and the poverty divide in America is huge. It's a gigantic problem, and it's a problem, unfortunately, we tend to view through ideological lenses. So there are people who look at it and they say, well, that's a right-wing solution, so we can't do it. The people look at it and they say, well, that's a left-wing solution, we can't do it. It strikes me, why do we have to be either or people? Why can't we be both and people? Let me give you one example in the world of poverty. Democrats tend to want to spend more money on job training and repairing the infrastructure of the inner city. This is a really good idea. This is desperately needed. That's one from column A. Republicans tend to want to spend money on propping up families in the inner city and creating better family structures. That's a really good idea. That's desperately needed. Why does it have to be that either we have to do it the liberal way or the conservative way? Why can't we look around for what ideas may actually do some good and not worry about their further ideological implications or what else they complicate? The reason is because race is so low on the agenda, poverty is so low on the agenda, that with every issue we think about how it will affect every other issue that's more important. And that's why we can't do anything about race or poverty, because unless it's at the top of the agenda, and so you don't worry about what will happen to another issue as a result, you're not going to fix it, because you'll constantly be shying away from things that will hurt some other constituency. But there's another crisis also that I want to mention that's not amenable to these kinds of solutions. There is an integrity crisis, I think, in America. Integrity measured the old-fashioned way. If you think of integrity as having a sense of how one ought to live and trying to live that way, it's very hard to get people to focus on the idea that there might be a right or a wrong way to live. I don't mean a right or wrong way for everybody to live. It's hard to get people to focus on the notion there might be a right way for they themselves to live. They ought to spend time contemplating not just how do I want to live, what do I want to own, what do I want to do, but how ought I to live? And I want to put the question that way. We're really good at thinking of how ought other people to live. Everybody can do that really well. What about me? What about other people? How ought I to live? We don't spend enough time thinking about that. We spend too much time thinking about what we ought to force others to do than what we ourselves ought to be doing. And that, I think, is the first question integrity demands of us. How ought I to live? And then trying to find discipline to do that. And that's something I think is dying in America, that sense of a distinction between how do I want to live and how ought I to live.